Hi, my name is Anna Kish. I'm a canine cognition researcher at the Research Center for Natural Sciences, and today I am going to present you a study about the owner's face as a reward for dogs. Here in the first slide you can see the reference for the full publication in case you want to see the details, but I am going to tell you about how we tested whether dogs consider this social stimuli as a reward. So first of all, we have to talk about how usually dog owners reward their dogs. There are many different ways to do it, and obviously dogs react according to their individual preferences. So we all know that there are some dogs who would play with the ball and they would be happy to work for a toy that they get. Other dogs would prefer to work for food reward, and there is also a social reward when we pet the dogs, when we praise them, and that's a kind of positive stimuli that we give them as a reward for something they've accomplished. Very important for the present study is that dogs consider social interaction as with a human partner, especially if it's the owner or another significant person in their life. So they consider this as positive and rewarding. Research has given physiological evidence for this. For example, it is known that after positive social interactions, oxytocin is released in the dog's body and also in human's body actually. And the brain reward center can be activated by social rewards the same way as with food rewards, which has been shown in brain imaging studies. In the research that I'm presenting now, we will use the owner's face as a reward. So it's important to note that dogs can actually process human faces. They can acquire different kinds of information from this stimuli. First of all, they can recognize their owners, and then also they can acquire this information not only from the owner's face but from strange people's faces as well. For example, they follow eye gaze direction, so if I look to one side or the other, then they will be able to follow this gaze direction and find a hidden food item, for example. Also, they know when a face is attentive, so when I'm looking at a dog or when my eyes are closed, they would behave differently. And they can differentiate between facial emotions as well. So if I'm a happy face or if I'm an angry face, then the dogs would react, for example, with a different gazing pattern in an eye tracking study. The question that we are asking now is based on human research, which has shown that humans, both adults and children, find another human face rewarding in contrast to objects, for example. And we wanted to see if the same holds true for dogs, specifically if dogs would prefer to choose a food reward which is next to a face, to the owner's face, versus another equal food reward which is next to a different image, specifically the owner's head from the back. So here's what we did. We had 39 subjects, adult privately owned pet dogs, who participated in an experiment where they had 2 food containers and both of them contained a food reward, and they simply had to choose between the 2 which one to eat. Very importantly, we had a barrier, a physical barrier between the 2 containers to prevent dogs from eating both food rewards. So they had to make a choice, go to one side, and they could only eat the one food that they found there. So as I said, the 2 food balls contained the same reward. There was no better or worse choice in this regard. And then what the whole point of the experiment was is that we projected the owner's head next to each of these balls. On one side we projected the owner from the front, so the dogs could view the face. The other was the owner's head. These stimuli were short video clips that we recorded before the experiment, and they were projected more or less in life size next to the food balls. So before the experiment we had a demonstration phase where the dogs could learn to associate the left and right side with each of the images. So we first projected one of the images, in this example the owner's face, and then we also played back the owner's voice, which would be an attention getter saying to the dog, hey look. Then we projected to the other side the other image, in this case the owner's head from the back, and it said the same voice recording to get the attention of the dog. We repeated this 5 times, so projecting one side, then projecting to the other side, and it lasted for about 1.5 minutes, which allowed the dogs to learn that on one side they could see the face, and on the other side they could see the non-face stimuli. This was followed by the test phase, when both of the images were projected simultaneously, and the dogs could freely choose between the 2 containers and eat the food in the container that they've chosen. And we had 12 trials total, so each time the dog went there, ate the food, then the owner asked them to come back, and then the experimenter rearranged the set and the dogs could choose again. Okay, so let's see what happened. For the results, we had the dogs, we had the 2 images, and how they've chosen. The first very important thing that we observed is that a high number of dogs simply didn't want to take part in the experiment, and they had to be excluded because they made no choice. This is 1/3 of the subject, which is a relatively high number compared to the dropout rate that we usually observe in similar experiments. So we asked why this happened, because the experiment was seemingly very easy, just go there and eat the food. And the only idea we had is that in this case the owner was present in 2 copies, let's say. So the owner was present live, instructing the dog, holding the collar, letting it go and calling it back. And then the owner was also projected on the wall. So this might have been confusing for the dog. Actually, we cannot be sure about this, but this is the best guess for this result. And for the remaining 26 subjects, we can see how they choose. Obviously, there are 3 different options. They can either prefer the owner's face, they can avoid the owner's face and prefer the other stimuli, or they can have like no preference, choosing one side and the other in more or less the same amount. So actually in this latter category we found most dogs. Half of the remaining dogs had no preference between the 2 images. And if we look at the other dogs, then we can see that there were more dogs that preferred the owner, but there were still some who actively avoided the owner and went to the other image. If we look at the graph, how this looked at the individual level, then this is what we get. There are the 26 individual subjects, and on the y-axis we can see the number of face choices. So the ones with the green are the dogs that chose the owner's face significantly above chance level, while the ones in red are the ones who avoided, and in the middle we can see the grey ones which had no preference. If we investigate the whole group of subjects that we measured, then we can see that there is a statistical tendency, actually a statistically significant result, which shows that dogs more often choose the owner's face than the non-face stimuli. However, if we look at the individual data, then we can see that there is a lot of difference between dogs, and we can also find some who actively avoid the owner's face. The next result that we've got is about the choice latency. So here you can see the 12 trials as they progress during the test, and then on the y-axis the time needed for making a choice from the point when the dog is released to the time when it reaches the food item that is going to eat. As the trials progress, regardless of the type of stimulus that the dog chooses, we can see a tendency that the dogs need less time to make the choice to reach the food container. So this shows us that dogs are learning something here, and they become like more confident in their choices, that they need less time to actually complete the task that they are doing. Okay, so what is this all telling us? First of all, our main question was about the reward value of the owner's face, and we can say that yes, we found a difference at the group level that dogs choose the owner's face more often. I mean, they choose the food reward associated with the owner's face more often. However, we have to add that this might also be due to some learned components. So just if we think about how owners or we usually reward dogs, it's that we stand facing the dog and simply give the reward. No one rewards the dog standing with the back. So dogs might have probably learned that it's a more natural way to get a food reward with the owner's face than with the owner's back of head. But regardless, the result stands that they had this kind of preference as a group. Also, like I just said, dog learned something in this task because we've seen that the latency of the choice decreased. So based on this, we can say that the food reward plus the social reward that was used in this test together caused, it was an effective way to make dogs learn something in this task. We have also talked about individual variability, which we found in this test. So actually many of the dogs, like I said, were excluded because they simply were not willing to take part in the experiment. Our best guess is that this is because of this strange situation that the owner was present both live and as a projected image. And if I had to redesign the test now, then I would use a different image because most dogs have two owners or live in the same household with more people, and one could act as a live person and use the other as a projected image. But we didn't do that, so for now we only have data for a subsample of the measured dogs. And even within this subsample, we've seen a huge variation in their choices. So not all of them preferred the owner at the individual level, some of them had no preference, and also some of them actually actively avoided the owner and chose the other image. So the question arises, what might cause this? And it would be logical to assume that there is some difference in dogs' socialization or their relationship with the owner. We actually tried to grab this difference. Owners filled in a couple of questionnaires, but we couldn't find any association with the factors that we investigated. So we are not sure yet why some dogs avoid the owner's face and choose the other reward. And I would like to still say a few sentences about why this research is good and what it can be used for. Well, obviously we all want to train our dogs for some purposes, not necessarily thinking of a working dog, but for an average family dog we also want to teach them things, and for that we need rewards. We've known for quite some time that social stimuli are rewarding, and this research adds to this body of literature. And we also know that different training techniques and different rewards might have the differential effectiveness for certain tasks and not for others. And now what we are saying is that we have to consider these kind of social rewards as effective also in addition to food reward, as was shown in the current study. And very importantly, we have to consider the dog's individual motivation and variation in their individual preferences, because as we have seen, even if as a group we find that they prefer the food with the owner's face, there were some dogs which didn't. Okay, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the talk. And I would like to thank all the funding bodies who supported us and all the enthusiastic owners who are taking part in our experiments, because without them we wouldn't find these interesting results. Thank you.